definitely played some like Warcraft 3 listening to Maladroit, I feel like lined up for me timeline wise, that sort of zone.
That's a real slice of time.
Maladroit came out on the same day as On a Wire from the Get Up Kids, and I bought them both at Blockbuster Music.
Holy
I still
crap.
like vividly remember that.
We are aging ourselves so much. Oh my God.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Pursuing Pixels. My name's Kevin Portelli, and I'm here tonight with John Hines.
Hey there.
And Randall Nolery.
Hey, folks.
And once again, we are back as always to talk about some video games. And yeah, I don't have anything else to say other than that. So why don't we just dig right into it? And Randall, why don't you get us started here with I was going to say your latest purchase, but probably one of your latest purchases, because they just keep coming. Yeah, they just keep coming.
Although I am going to talk hardware again, as I threatened prior, and I'm not done yet. There's more in that chamber, but this week,
oh heck yeah,
you get the Analogue 3D to continue down my pathway of not even replacing, I still have the original hardware, but of the thing that's actually hooked up for all of these systems being kind of the analog version when available. So the Analogue 3D is now the reimagined FPGA driven Nintendo 64, I should say. So
yeah, it's almost replacing it, like in my mind, it's like the analog unit is like, I don't have any of them, but like if I did, yeah, like you said, it's like you're not getting rid of the old ones, but it is, essentially replacing them.
Essentially it is. And yeah, I've got one of those fun green Donkey Kong 64s, and I've got just my original black 64. Both are in the closet because, man, this Analogue 3D is killer. It is everything that I would have wanted out of this. I have a pretty decent Nintendo 64 collection as a N64 kid. Chose it over PlayStation during its era. Jumped from Sega Genesis to Nintendo 64 and the whole 3D revolution of it all. And even then I preferred cartridges over discs, and just the physicality of all that. And very happy now to still have a collection of games. And I will say, of all the, regardless of the modern upscaling solutions that were available, like I had my 64 hooked up, but the way that the Nintendo 64 was designed is a little bit of a hodgepodge hot mess of sorts. And there was no good way to get like a SCART RGB output out of that thing without doing heavy modding, or like some people went in a full HDMI mod. I stuck with what was possible out of the default, Nintendo, AV output, which was best you could do is like S-video. And because of the way the Nintendo 64 processes images, a lot of the smeariness that the 64 is known for, and like with textures and things like that, kind of happens before it even gets outputted to the TV. It's happening within the system's hardware. It's kind of almost hardcore that way. So regardless of what kind of mods you did, they got better over time, trying to like remove the blur, doing like de-blur effects in some of these mods. But it was just getting up to a point, and granted, there's still emulation where you could see some pretty beautiful results out of this Nintendo 64 games if you want to go that route. But as someone that's tried to be, at least purist in regards to the games that I own and wanting to play those off a shelf as opposed to a big emulator list, which, to me becomes noise. My ADD brain needs to see things to like know that they exist and I can touch them and play them.
Mm-hmm. It needs to be like a curated collection of stuff to pick from.
Yes, which I definitely have. But there's a lot of limitations, a lot of rose-colored glasses with some of these Nintendo 64 games, especially. This is the dawn of 3D, remind you, on consoles, more or less, and gets a little clunky. So along comes now the Analogue 3D, and because of this very powerful FPGA technology where they're emulating hardware and using kind of these like modern CPUs, they can go down into a very, very deep hardware level and effectively allow you to toggle settings to, remove blur effects from the Nintendo 64, to remove texture filtering and things like that were making it look very like smudgy and, just like not super clear. You can make the sharpness high so you can see those very fine rough edges on the polygons that you could typically count.
All those textures that have 3 colors in the starkest HD.
Exactly. And I'm like, hell yeah. And that's something, and that's amazing to me because, I'd even bought like cheap mod kits of like, I'm going to mod my 64, and I never got around to doing that. It just never actually happened. So to have this come around and be like, okay, here you go. Here's a modern solution. And with that, you're getting Bluetooth technology. You got 8BitDo releasing, a Nintendo 64 controller that is not too dissimilar from like a Pro controller, but doesn't have a clickable analog stick. It just has what really feels like the Nintendo 64 stick in a more like precise way. It's like not quite as tall as the 64
so like floppy
stick.
And
not floppy at all. And no dust when you're doing your circles so far. So that's good too.
Nice.
But the C buttons are exactly how they like everything about the controller, despite not being a 3-prong anymore, but just, the standard controller shape, feels more or less like a 64 controller. And I found myself being able to play games, honestly, as or more effectively, especially the 3D ones that use an analog stick. Yeah. With this combination in kind of
I like that controller a lot. I've seen those, and like I looked at them at like a quick glance and like didn't even notice that there wasn't a second analog stick on there or anything. I mean, it looks like you said, just like a Switch Pro controller essentially.
Oh, that looks incredible.
That looks very nice.
The button sizing is just like down pat to like how it should feel for like the BA buttons and the C buttons, which is the smaller. Most important. Yep.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Only slight downside is the D-pad to me feels a little too tough, and it's like trying to play something like a Pokemon Puzzle League that uses the D-pad and you're pressing it like pretty quickly over and over again. Wears on the thumb a lot more than the actual N64 D-pad does in my experience, but I still have those controllers too. You can plug them in. There's 4 ports just like the actual 64. You know, if you didn't want to go Bluetooth or wireless, right?
Yeah. No, that's awesome.
The Bluetooth doesn't take up one of those controller ports?
Well, so the other kind of really cool part, I think it could technically, but what's nice is if you are connecting Bluetooth, it lights up like a light within the controller port to say like player 1 is, Bluetooth. And then you could still plug in a controller in slot 2 or whatever, or just like, because I bought 2 of them. I've got the white one too. So like it just 2 Bluetooth controllers, and it lights up the 2 ports associated for play, and very easy to using like the OS to flip between a virtual control pack or a virtual rumble pack. So you're not changing those things out. And because it's virtual controller pack, you don't have to worry about memory concerns or limitations that you're managing, saves on a, limited capacity scenario, which is nice. That opens that up. But none of this is the true cherry on top to me of this system, besides also being 4K. But I'm running it through my RetroTink, so that's not really much of an issue. The biggest factor is the overclock mode, which again, because of the hardware, allows you to boost the literal performance of Nintendo 64 games, and now you're not dealing with the judder, the stuttering, the frame rate random drops nearly as much as you were on actual hardware. And it has been a total game changer in how these games feel to play for me. Like an example is like in WWF No Mercy, if you're playing one of the modes where there's 4 characters on it at a given time, it like halves the frame rate, and it's fine, it's not the end of the world. But now if you're playing that 4-player mode, it just feels as if you were playing 1v1 sort of thing, and it's so smooth. Nice. Same with like Star Fox 64. That's
the first game I thought of. Yeah,
plays like a goddamn dream. It's I was showing it to Fiona, and I was like still needing to do a work thing or two later on in the day, and I'm like, all right, we'll try this level out, and then I'm just like playing through the whole level, and I'm doing all the things to get 3 gold rings and everything else, and everything's immediately coming back to me, and it feels perfect. It's so smooth. Even like John will know this, going to what's the underwater level, Aquarius or whatever, with the submarine that just moves like a slideshow typically on the Nintendo 64. Now it plays smoothly. You can see what it feels like to play
what it was supposed to be like. Yes.
Because ultimately, it's not like this isn't some super magic box where these don't still ultimately look like Nintendo 64 games. It's just cleaned up, and now it runs like it's supposed to without, those maybe cost-cutting limitations that Nintendo might have had to put into place at the last minute for their hardware to get it to $200 or whatever. Like it's beautiful. Same with like games that really push. Like a lot of the Rares games were ones that really pushed the hardware past even what the expansion pack could help with. You're seeing like 60 frames per second on or at least 30 solidly on games like GoldenEye and Perfect Dark, which often was not the case, especially again if you get into multiplayer scenarios. It's night and day, and it's one of those changes where it's like opened that library back up to me as something I would consider, I can play these games and enjoy them without, any barriers now. And it's real nice.
Does it have a built-in memory card or something like that? So you can save games like that?
Well, kind of. So I will say one of the things, and I hope they do, Analogue's always good about doing firmware updates. I'll say that too. There's already been one since it launched to fix some minor things, and they always do that for all their consoles. There is a built-in memory card if you're using the 8BitDo controller. I haven't tried without it, like using just a regular 64 controller to see if it would expect me to insert an actual memory pack or not. PAK. And I will say, unlike some other systems, there's not a way to like access that I can find anyway, a storage menu. Like the actual OS of this thing is very, very limited and streamlined at this time, which is more or less fine. One final piece, I'm just talking my ear off about this now because this is
please do.
But you get profiles effectively per game, because another thing about Nintendo 64 hardware and the games for it, it's like there's so much variance in how they were programmed and how they can play and what they need and what their limitations are, that the way that Analogue addressed this is by having a specific profile for every single cartridge you insert, that for every single one of those you're defining, do I want this to be an overclocked mode for Space Station Silicon Valley or whatever, and do I want it to be 32-bit color and deblur, or does that game totally crash when you do that, or does it not have any benefit, or like certain games like Banjo-Kazooie run too fast if you try to run in overclock mode because they tied the programming to the hardware speed.
Oh my god.
So there's stuff like that, so they're also accounting for that, and they need to go profile by profile. And when you like insert the cartridge, if it recognizes it, it says, oh yeah, this is like whatever, Wave Race 64, version 2 or whatever. And go ahead and set your settings on that. And then the next time you put the cartridge in, it'll remember those things, which is nice.
Well, it's like compiling really cool, shaders for PC games. It's so fascinating to think of like going back and doing that for retro games.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is. It's like, and way more complicated than I think they get credit for the amount of work that goes into this sort of thing. To like decompile it like kind of backwards from the modern context and make sure it still outputs as a modern digital signal to our modern televisions in different configurations. Not the easiest thing to do. So yeah, very into it. Probably even forgetting to say things. The SD card is too small. It did fuck up my docking station when I inserted it, and that went all the way into my docking station. And to get it out, I had to pull my docking station apart. So for those of you that haven't done that yet, make sure you are putting into a shallow SD card slot. Otherwise, you might run into the same problem. Reminded me when I would accidentally put the SD card into like the CD slot of my iMac back in the day or something. And like, oh, did that a couple of times. Yeah. So Analogue 3D, it's very good. It's currently sold out, but I know they're going to be taking more pre-orders for the next batch.
Yeah, they've been pretty good about it over the last couple launches, I feel.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
Nintendo 64, it's not bad.
Glad to hear. But yeah, why don't we just kick it over to you, John, before I kind of sandwich us with a little more console action at the end here.
Yeah. So I can do a nice little segue with a small little hardware bit of my own, because I did also get an 8BitDo controller to replace the fact that I now have no working controllers from any console.
That's tough.
Yeah, my PS4 ones have like either, trigger issues where, they don't respond, or they're not like recognizing when I'm putting in inputs on like either the left or right trigger, which are kind of integral to playing games. And then my Switch Pro controllers just have like abysmal drift at this point, which is a mega bummer.
That's crazy. I've never had that with a Pro.
Yeah. But so I did get the 8BitDo Ultimate 2C controller. And I will say at this point, like have noticed some like input lag on certain things, which is like not a game breaking thing for, I'm not really playing competitive gaming or doing anything that's less like intense or intensive in terms of that. But, still a little bit of a disappointment. But overall form factor feels nice. The tactileness of it feels good, but I'm just mostly bummed that, the first party controllers just have an expiration date that like I've never had with any other system that I've had before, which is a bummer.
Seriously.
But
I'm assuming you're playing Bluetooth connected then that way.
Yeah, because even like with it wired, like when I don't know, it does some weird things with the pairing where, it makes it difficult to boot up the system, or it won't like work when it's wired or other things. Like it unpairs and then repairs. So, would have hoped for a little bit more like right out of the box, like work and whatever. But
yeah, you might just have to do something to like switch the modes, because I know on like my SN30 you have to like hold down start and X to like get it into the mode that'll like pair it to a Switch, and then start and Y that'll be like the Windows pairing mode.
I forgot all about that.
There's something weird about that, because mine disconnected the other day and I was trying to like get it all figured out, and it was something where my Bluetooth just like completely, like my computer just thought it didn't have Bluetooth. I had to like reinstall the drivers.
All right.
But it had nothing to do with the controller, but I do remember having to like toggle some settings on it to like switch it from X mode to Y mode. I don't know what the difference is.
Because it does have two like custom buttons, as well as like an L3 and an R3, like actual trigger buttons. So maybe they actually L4 and R4 like positioned like off center on the back triggers. So, there's more to look at. It's early days for me. Compared to the Pro controllers, which I like put through their paces, and the PS4 controllers, which I also basically destroyed from overuse. So let's not make any claims that I didn't get my full money's worth out of those controllers. But needless to say, what I have been playing with that controller, though, has been, again, Tears of the Kingdom, Legend of Zelda. And I gushed about it last episode, and I'll gush about it again. Is like, this is one of my favorite games of all time. Like, I've played it now. This is my third save file that I've started from scratch and like had every bit of enjoyment playing from zero and building back up. Like, I'm now at a point where, you know, I wouldn't call it end game, but I'm basically can do anything, even if I'm very underpowered and can get one-shotted by the enemies that I'm.
That's the most fun, though. I love that.
It's so good. I love that I'm like, have like full reign of like the maps and what I can do in the games, but like I'm still just so impressed by all the systems in it and like how much the game is designed around like really complex physics interactions, as well as like taking everything that was in Breath of the Wild and just making it even more expansive or even more immersive, and like adding so many different things to it. And you having the like sky area, the like regular ground level, and then the chasm. Like, chasm will remain my favorite part of this game, like far and away. It's everything I love. I love light management. I love it being an inversion of the like topography of the like regular ground map. So every mountain is now a valley and vice versa.
It's amazing.
It's such like everything about the game is so good. And, like,
it is so good.
I'm just so happy to like I had not played it for a while, and I had put it down, and I was, you know, very like I had the itch to pick it back up, and it's like, oh, I wonder if like it still has the magic of like it did in the first time, and it absolutely does for me. And like thing that I've also been playing in addition to that is what I've been doing in my own like solo play time, although I've been doing this other game in solo play time as well, but I've been mostly playing Arc Raiders with Kevin's and my bandmates, Glenn and Mikey, and doing like 3-person raids in like, again, a kind of I would make the glib comparison as like, it's basically Tears of the Kingdom, or it's like, you know, you can't be precious about the items that you have. Everything's going to break eventually, or you're going to lose it and die. But like the sound design in Arc Raiders, I think, is really impressive. And like the physics in Arc Raiders is really impressive. Like the way that, you know, the arcs are the robot or drone enemies that are the NPC fighters, and then you have the the actual PvP players that you encounter, like have their own level of, you know, immersion or like randomness included in the sound design. But like even if you don't encounter another human player, like hearing another arc like slowly creep up on you, and like you're just constantly like feeling like the sense of space with the sound design. And then when you actually get into battles with them, you know, you have drones that if you take out one of their helicopter blades, then they become all like disoriented and wobbly, and they have to right themselves. And it's just like a really impressive amount of like physics at play for just like a single enemy. It's really, really good in terms of like thoughtful design in terms of those areas. And then the like maps themselves are like really interesting and cool to explore. So like it's kind of been scratching the same itch moving between Tears of the Kingdom and Arc Raiders, where like when I do a solo raid in Arc Raiders, I'm just going to a map and being like, I've never been to this area before. Like anytime I'm playing with like my friends, we usually, you know, have a goal or like some direction that we're going. So when I'm taking my time and playing by myself, I was like, all right, let's just do this as slow as possible and like listen to, you know, everything that's here, like going around me. And then you run into an area and you see like suddenly you just hear like nonstop gunfire, and anytime a player character gets knocked out, it sends up an emergency flare. So you like crest a mountain, and then you just see 3 flares go up, and it's like, nope, turn right back around. We're not going that way. Let's find a new way to go on the map.
That's toast.
Let's abandon that objective and find something else to do. Like,
yeah. The world feels very alive in that way. Like the handful of times that I've watched you guys play, like it's like, yeah, things can obviously, whether it's other players or the arcs that are just like roaming around, like you just never know what might be around the corner. Like I love when you guys will just be like making, like kind of running, like making headway, and like Mikey, he's typically tends to be the leader of the pack, and he'll just be like, shit, no, and like you guys are just like, wait, what's over there? He's just like, no, we're not going over there. No, we're not going over there. And it's just like, and then you guys kind of debrief after that. But it's just like, it's cool to see like that. I don't know that. I don't know. It just feels alive. I don't know how else to put it.
Yeah, it really does. And like, that's the most fun part about it is like, like they're trying, you have to make like some sort of randomness or like something to keep you coming back to it. And I think that the way that it's implemented, both like the arcs as like the standard enemies that will attack anyone, and then the like players that you encounter and like have like an open comms channel and just be like, hey, are we cool? Are you not going to attack me? Because like there's some bad arcs outside, and like we like are just barely surviving right now. And you get your, I would say majority of the time, good open communication between people, and then the rest of the time they're either going to stab you in the back or just shoot you on sight. And like that tension is also so like integral to the game, where it's like, I love kind of being like having those moments of panic, being like, God, is this going to be fine? And like, I love especially doing that in solo play, because I'm a little baby pacifist and I'm never going to attack someone unless they're like actively like we're trapped in a room and there's like one-on-one. But like, there's been so many times where like I'll run into someone and like they panic and they're like, I don't have a microphone as well, so I'm used to like just being like, all right, what emotes can I pull out? Or I pull out the little flute thing and I just start playing a little jaunty ditty as I like run past them, and they're like, all right, well, the little guy who's playing music isn't going to do anything.
He's just panicking.
I do have I know that this is like actually a paid game for being a big popular multiplayer thing. Like, how intrusive is the Raider tokens stuff? Because I'm kind of looking at some pages about this game right now.
Not at all. Like, it's a battle pass, but like in the same way that like, I don't know, like games just like kind of need to include it. And I've not gotten a second deck. Decks are what they call their like, they'll give you objectives, and then you'll get the like specific currency to unlock cosmetics and stuff. And I don't think the decks expire, but it's unclear, because why would they communicate that to their player base? Like it's almost not there. Like, I will do like a handful of runs, and then I'm like, oh, I guess I might be able to buy a cosmetic, and then I buy a grubby looking dirty shirt, and I said, cool, back to never looking at this for another like game session entirely.
Feels like the right way to do it.
Honestly, I'm kind of fine when they're like, well, it's expected for us to include this in a game, but let's not actually make it a thing that you have to pay attention to at all.
Yes, please.
Yeah. And I'll be honest, the only reason I haven't scooped it up yet is because I either am going to, I'm torn between whether I want to get it on a console or whether I want to get it on my PC. My PC literally has the bare minimum specs to run it, or I could get it on a console, but then I also have to then get the online, pass to play online. So it's like, what do I want to do? Am I eventually going to have a Steam machine that's going to be able to run it? I don't know what to do.
I will say that since you brought that up, I have been exclusively playing this game on low quality graphics with capped at 30 frames per second. And I'm a little freak, so I haven't noticed really that much, other than the fact that trees will just pop in and spook me, and I was like, oh my god.
Yeah. No, I'm definitely tempted. I feel like I said this to you guys. I just still haven't done it yet, but I feel like I should just buy it on Steam. And then if it doesn't run well enough on my computer, I can just return it, like with their return policy, as long as you've played it for less than 2 hours, I think is what their return policy is. And then buy it on console if not. But I'm just like, I've been spending so much money. The last thing I need to do is like buy a game and then buy a year worth of, the online pass or whatever.
Fair.
So,
Yeah, because
totally
that PS5 is certainly beefier, but yeah, then you're roped in to the PlayStation Network.
Exactly.
And what about that
Exactly.
PS5? Tell us.
I was going to say anything else to wrap it up there, John, because that's a perfect transition. I was trying to be a little cagey there to not say the console.
PlayStation
I'm like, I got to get the online service. But yeah, I'm like, and there's all these tiers now of PS Plus, so it's like, and well, if I'm going to spend $100 on it, I might as well spend $150 on it. But it's like, no, I don't really think I want to spend anything on it, because I looked into it. It's nowhere near as good as Game Pass. Game Pass blows it out of the water beyond a doubt, even at the top tier of PS Plus. But yeah, I did finally. Yeah, it's a little bit disappointing in that regard. Not that it's totally worthless. Like, there's definitely some good games on there, but I was just like, I'm gonna end up buying a lot of these games anyways. Yeah. So the ones that I want to play. So it's not a ton of value to me. But nonetheless, I finally did spring for the PS5. It was on sale for $100 off, even though that's not that great of a deal, because they raised the price $50 when the tariffs kicked in earlier this year. So, at the end of the day, I guess I'm only getting $50 off on the deal. But yeah, I just kind of got the console with the disc drive, and I've been picking up a ton of games. But really, the only thing I've played, I actually played quite a bit more of, or I shouldn't say more, because I just replayed. I didn't transfer over my save files or anything. But I just picked up and started a fresh file of Crash Bandicoot 4 and just replayed that first world again, and really, really good stuff. It did have a PS5 upgrade. So I was like, I want to see how this game looks compared to the PS4 version that I was just playing. It's fresh in mind. So it's not, night and day or anything, but it's definitely, an improvement. And then I did actually pop in that Crash Team Racing collection, because I was just like, I want to see if this loads any faster. Just because that was a game that had really long load times, and it was maybe faster, but it wasn't noticeably quicker enough to where I was like, I'm definitely going to play more of this. I was like, it's still a bit of a pain.
That checks out, because I was playing that on Series X and was noticing,
still had the long load times.
We got a load time thing going on here in this kart racer.
Yeah, and then an arcade racing game, it's like, come on, I want to get into the, I want to pick the level and get into the action.
Yes.
Within a few seconds. So I get if you want to do a Mario Kart thing and pan around the level while you're doing some behind the scenes loading, but do that pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. Don't just show me a loading screen for well over 30 seconds, if not more than that. But it might have been a little quicker than that on the PS5. But nonetheless, I bounced around a little bit, some of that stuff. And real quick before I leave Crash Bandicoot 4, I didn't give a shout out to the boss battle at the end of the first world last time when I talked about that game briefly. It's just an amazing boss battle where you're essentially playing as Crash Bandicoot, obviously. And then the boss that you're playing is at the far end of the screen, and you're almost playing on a Guitar Hero level, imagine. And the boss is sending projectiles that you have to either duck below or slide beneath or jump over or whatever, that are playing along to the beat of the music. Nice. And then if you dodge enough of them, and I think you have to hit the little minions that it throws at you back at it, and if you hit enough of them, it stuns it, and then you can run up to the boss and do the one of 3 hits or whatever. But it was just such an awesome boss battle that I forgot to shout out last time, even though I already kind of gushed about that game a little bit.
Nice.
Not to oversell it. But the main thing that I was playing is Astro's Playroom, which comes built into the PS5, and it's kind of the way that it's presented is almost an introduction to how the DualSense controller works, which is essentially a DualShock, but it's got some new features on it. They've kind of continuously evolved the DualShock, ever since the DualShock 3, I feel, or I take that back, before the DualShock 3, when they had the 6-axis and they didn't have the rights for the DualShock. I totally forgot about that, but they were trying to add in the motion controls and stuff like that, and they still have that all in here. In Astro's Playroom, there's actually a ton of sections of the game where you're tilting the controller left and right, or using it to steer. I felt like I was playing a Wii game at times. every once in a while it worked pretty well, but like for the most part, it was actually kind of annoying. But on the whole, the game was really, really fun. Like, even though it had some frustrating elements to the point where like they're pretty generous on the checkpoints, but it's like one hit death. If you get hit by anything, you just have to go back to the checkpoint. And sometimes those checkpoints are far enough back where you're like, oh, I got to do this annoying section. I've said this about other games too. I think even about Crash Bandicoot games, where it's like, oh, I have to do this whole little chunk again, like just to get to that challenging part. And then like I might mess up just because I'm trying to rush through it. And it's just like oddly placed checkpoints at times where it's like, why was it here right before? Like, why didn't you put it right before this challenging jumping section, or right before this boss that like is going to surprise you with an attack that you've never seen before? But otherwise, it's like a 3D platformer that's like I said, pretty gimmicky. But the thing that was really enjoyable about this game is there's 4 worlds that are broken up into kind of like 4 sections each. But each of those 4 worlds is like almost like I was going to say a celebration of like one of the previous PlayStation eras or consoles, but not entirely. But like you basically, like, the hidden items in each world are like these relics. And like, for example, if you're in one of the worlds, like they're all going to be like things related to the PlayStation 1. So it'll be like the PS1, the actual console, or the memory cards, or the original controller, or the DualShock controller. And then when you're in like the PS2 era, you'll get like the iToy, or I'm trying to think of some other things like you'll even get like the PSP and the Vita, and like you'll get like game cartridges and discs, but it'll be Uncharted, but it'll be like some kind of pun with like an Astrobot character climbing up the mountain or something like that. Or
nice.
And then all throughout the game too, like as you're running through the levels, like the coolest part of the game to me, and I many of the references I had no idea what they were, but they'll be like all these little like kind of side characters that are just kind of doing their own thing, like, you know, just they're not even NPCs. They're just kind of like there, you know, doing little animations or whatever. But they'll be like little cameramen around, or camera robots that are like filming other characters. And it'll be like, oh, there's like a bot version of like Kratos, or a scene from Final Fantasy VII, or a scene from just any like Ape Escape, anything from like the PlayStation heritage, like not even necessarily first party stuff. But just like anything that like kind of came up on those platforms, like there are just references left and right to where it was just so jam packed with like love for the console or like the PlayStation. Like, I don't know. It just was oozing with charm that I was having a blast, even in spite of all the frustrations. Like at one point you're getting like you literally are like in this monkey suit that you're doing this rock climbing, and you got to tilt the controller left and right to like switch which arm is going up, and you're grabbing with the left and right triggers, and it's got these like haptic
Donkey Kong game that came out on Game Boy.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah,
Game
with
Boy
like
Advance.
actual motion controls. Yeah, and then like
King of Swing.
and then it has those like sensitive like pressure haptic triggers or whatever it's called. I ended up turning them off because like there was like they're really like you have to pull hard on the trigger to get it to pull. Like it really has a ton of resistance, and I was like, I don't like this at all, at least not the way that it's implemented in this Astro's Playroom. Maybe I would like it in like a game like Arc Raiders or something where I'm shooting, but really realistically I'm like, I already feel like the R2 triggers have enough resistance with that spring in them as it is. Like I don't need it more than that, and it's like rumbling, and like I was really having to like jam on it, so I didn't like that. But you can just turn it right off, and you know, no problem there. So, you know, on the whole, I haven't had a ton of time to dig into a ton of stuff, but I've been pretty happy with the purchase so far. I wish I would have had more time to dig into it, but I do really like that DualSense controller. Like apart from having the gripes about it, and like there's like they're making you use the touchpad, but like it's got way more features on it than I guess even realized. You know, like I didn't expect there to be like motion controls and them to design a game that was like essentially built around familiarizing you with all of these various features on the controller. So yeah, I don't know. It was an interesting experience, like, but the way that it was put together put it over the hump, like to where like, yeah, every time you're like filling your actual like kind of lobby with all the different, collectibles. And I'm like, okay, I missed a few relics in this area, so I might want to go back and try to find some of those just to I don't know, relive some of that PlayStation nostalgia, because between my brother and I, we had most of those platforms over the years, apart from the handheld stuff.
Nice.
But yeah, pretty cool. And I do like the way it looks. It's pretty bulky and it's a little bit ugly in a way, but it's kind of cool to have a white console. I feel like everything's just like a black box these days. And to be fair, I do like the way that Steam machine looks. Like it's just a real sleek little box, the way that at least the way they're showing it now.
Yeah.
Before it's out. But like this thing is a little bit of a beast without a doubt. But yeah, I've got it standing vertically, kind of tucked behind my TV, just, standing out a little bit so that I can slide a disc in there. But yeah, and the disc drive's a little bit loud. I put a disc in there and I was like, oh man. But once it loads on there, it's like a pretty quiet system. So
right. Yeah, it's probably not accessing it very much at that point,
Yeah.
It's more just as a license sort of thing once it's downloaded it onto the hard drive.
Yeah, it just rips it on there real quick and then you're on your way. Yeah.
That's awesome.
But yeah, happy to have it and happy to have essentially now a PlayStation 4 that I don't have to give a bunch of love taps
Definitely.
to get the disc to read and stuff like that.
Definitely.
Although I panicked the first disc I put in, because I've got it standing vertically, the way that I just intuitively thought to put it in ended up being upside down, because like the way that the system is actually technically designed to be laid horizontally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then if I would have had it that way, I would have put it in the right way, but I just didn't realize that that was the way the disc went in. But thankfully, it didn't matter. I just popped it in the other way. But I was like, oh man, I was having issues before I even put in a disc. And it had no sound at first, but I think it was because I was running it through my capture card and didn't have the connection secure. But I was like, oh man, I'm off to a great start here. But yeah, after that, pretty happy with the purchase so far.
Nice. That's awesome. That's a big jump up. That's fantastic. You're going to have fun with that.
Yeah.
Even more than you already have so far.
Definitely. And I'm already bulking up on quite a few physical copies, because I picked it up right around Black Friday here. So I've just seen too many deals that were too tough to pass up. So I'll have plenty of games to talk about in the coming weeks and months here. So
nice.
But yeah, I think I'll leave it there for now. And anything else we want to gab about before we wrap things up tonight, guys?
No, sir.
No, nah.
Perfect. Well, yeah, as always, you can find us on the internet at pursuingpixels.com and pretty much anywhere else. Just look up Pursuing Pixels. And yeah, until next week, we'll catch you then, and take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Do you know who I am?
I am.
You think you are?
I am.
You think you are?
Whatever you say I am.